I want to talk about is full stack website apps. Using RESTful API in WordPress to help build that, so that you can build, so that I can at least, and the thought process being this could be a general direction. I think some folks are already trying to go down this path of building a website or website app, responsive level app, and actual mobile app, all off of the same basic WordPress implementation. I've got a few clients that have that actually have a specific mobile solution, but when we built them, it was before the whole responsive technology was getting started. And so we actually went to a third-party platform to build a mobile solution because it was just easier to get them up and running on that. And we still have those clients on that. And what I wanted, one thing I wanted to do is get those clients off of that technology, just get them onto a purely WordPress-based technology. Those same clients already see the benefit as well of having a mobile app, simply because having a mobile app allows them to get their branding on their customers' mobile property and in front of them more frequently. So it's all about, that's all about brand visibility. So I really hope I don't have to convince people that mobile's important, because that's really where all the action is. I think it was a few years ago that we reached the point where there were more transactions or more website views occurring on mobile technology than there was on desktop technology or laptop technology. And then in March of 2015, we statistically hit to where mobile-only users, adult mobile-only users, exceeded the number of adult desktop mobile-only users. So that's really a big important point for that. So a lot of folks your age, I am a little bit older than most of you, I think, and so my frame of mind is a little bit different, but I try to keep myself thinking where folks are at. But I think folks your age and younger, the perspective tends to be more focused on the mobile technology. As a matter of fact, I've talked to some folks who have just flat out said email and desktops and even laptops are like workish things. They're school and work, but they're not the technology they like to be on day in and day out. So if they have to be, they will, but most of the time they prefer to be on mobile. So as I was mentioning before, and by the way, I didn't even say my name or any of that, so I'm bad at introducing. So Art Smith, I'm basically the owner of Ambrosia Web Technology, and we primarily do website development and hosting and doing creative things within that technology. The vast majority of our sites are WordPress based. We do web app development, we do mobile web app development. Ethan, I don't remember if you and I were in the iOS development class together. Yeah, we were. Okay, so I've done some iOS development, but we've not gotten to the point where we've gotten a client willing to spend money on that. But one of the things I have been kind of looking at is how can we leverage hybrid mobile app technologies, and that's part of what we're going to talk about today. And then, and like I said before, I've got clients who are starting to recognize the importance of mobile and trying to expand their presence in that world. So a traditional view for me talking to a client, or our solutions that we would have in place today, would be a desktop view, laptop view based on a WordPress site. And then a mobile view that might be based on a separate technology like Duda Mobile or something like that. And that's more because of the historicity behind it. As we develop brand new sites, we put people on responsive technology. So that's, we really think about mobile before we think about the desktop as much as possible. And then if we have a mobile app solution, we would be looking at some kind, possibly a data store on the back end, possibly not, I'm not sure. It doesn't have to be WordPress. Certainly WordPress is one place to go to do that. We've done some app development where we're using a JavaScript front end or whatnot tied back to the existing Ajax interface that WordPress provides, has had for quite a long time. Or, again, if we get a responsive view, then we knock out one back-end piece, and that's definitely where we go today and want to take our older clients to. So in trying to develop a new solution, worst case, when you're thinking about content management and what the client has to do, or what we have to do for the client even, worst case is that we have to build 3 different solutions. We got 3 different sets of content that have to be maintained. You run into risks because you got multiple sources of data. You might have inconsistencies between the different platforms, and you really don't want that. Human error becomes a factor as well. You might have something that looks right here, and maybe it's different enough or imperfect enough that you just run into problems. Best case, try to build individual solutions with common requirements across multiple platforms, using a single source of data to ensure consistency in content and timing delivery. Timing of delivery is another issue that you can have with multiple sources, just because you put something here and it's like, oh, I didn't get around to getting the mobile view put in place until a week later, and the client might not like that. And you avoid some of the human factor in having everything in one place. So what I've been thinking about for a while and trying to build towards is a WordPress-only backend solution for all 3 presentation layers. So, and then as I've thought about that, before RESTful API came along, I was spending time figuring out, okay, how do I get my native mobile app on iOS or Android, how do I get that to talk properly back to the WordPress API? And I got to be honest with you, I love technology. I've been a developer for over 30 years, but sometimes I look at those types of needs from a technical standpoint, and I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if you remember, how far we got with iOS with the C language that we had in there, but I really don't know yet how I would make that connection. And so I'm really thankful that there's new solutions for mobile apps with the hybrid technologies that are available. And I've started taking a serious look at Ionic to do that. Now, this is not an Ionic presentation, but the fact that we can do the RESTful API and I can do a web type of solution for the mobile app just kind of brings 2, like chocolate and peanut butter together for a great solution. So, and this kind of lists out a little bit more of the technology stack pieces here. I started using AngularJS about a year or so ago for web app development, and I really like the way that it works. It's been easy to develop with. I haven't spent any time with Angular 2 yet, but Angular 1 has really been a big help as opposed to just developing straight JavaScript code. I don't know about anybody else in the class, but the idea of pasting together my HTML and Java in a string concatenation in JavaScript and jQuery versus having HTML that actually looks like HTML, where I just say this field goes here, this field goes here, and this field goes here. And I still have JavaScript to write, but ultimately the presentation layer gets a little more isolation from the code to get you there. And I think that works better for both myself and anybody I'm working with that's helping with on the design side for that. So basically, I think WordPress is a great platform for developing apps in general. It's got it's a framework. It's got all the database pieces that I need. It's got all the security that I need. I can extend those out as I need to. And now with the RESTful API, I've got a way to build out a way of extending into the actual interface from the client side a lot more easily. So we can be integrating with external, internal websites. So basically, just we can use it anyway. Angular provides that strong presentation layer paradigm. Ionic, I don't know how many are familiar with Ionic. Okay, so Ionic is a tool for developing mobile apps using HTML and CSS and Angular as the basis for that development. And what the work product that comes out of it is still essentially web content. It's specialized, but it works with Cordova. It's Cordova, right? And it works with Cordova. And what you end up with is basically a web app running inside of a specialized browser that Ionic is providing you to build out your work product. But you can then put that in the Apple App Store, and you can put it in the Android Play Store. I'm still learning some of these things. But, and you can get it, and you can also make it available on Windows as well, Windows Phone. So, and frankly, the fact that Ionic uses Angular to do a lot of its work means that I think there's a lot of opportunity to reuse code that you develop in the Ionic space and bring that over into the regular desktop and responsive mobile space as well. So to me, that's a big value point. And I and my clients love the idea of having one place to update instead of 2 or 3. I mean, if there's anything that any client complains about is, I got to do this 3 times or I got to do this 2 times, it's very frustrating for them. So I've got a number of different projects that I'm stacking up for this, but the first one I'm doing is for one of my clients that's a nonprofit. It's the Clyde Festival. How many people know what the Clyde Festival is? Really? Okay, July 21st through 23rd at the Aquatic Center in Clyde on I forget what the number of the street is, but it's the north part of what's 50th Street in West Des Moines. It's a 3-day event, music. Do I have that all here? Yeah, so music, food, beer, wine, children's activities, vendors, all kinds of fun. We've been a sponsor of that event for several years now. We've been taking care of their website for them. Currently that site only has a desktop view, so I really want to get them to a responsive mobile view and an app. Matter of fact, if you remember, my final project in the iOS class was an app for the Clyde Festival, but that never gained any traction.
For some reason I heard of it.
So I'm moving forward with a project to provide, and I want to make sure, I know I'm going to be taking too long, so I'll try to breeze through the rest of it. But, responsive view, a mobile app view, and basically providing access to the schedule and a map and things that would be important to people that are coming to the event, so they know where things are happening and what's happening. And what I'm doing here, I'm going to extend over to other clients that have event focuses of some kind in order so that they can provide those to their customers as well. Okay, so they missed the 4.5 release for the REST API core. Does anybody know what's up with that?
It's a backwards compatibility issue.
Is that what it was? Okay, so
that's only the core part of the REST APIs in there.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't know. It's a big deal. I'm hoping that's not a sign of the problem long term. So we'll see what happens on 4.6.
They haven't been too happy in their Slack, that's for sure.
Well, that's what I kind of got that impression. I haven't been able to spend a lot of time looking, following the details of it, but I did see something about, Matt had some concerns about the whole project and that.
Yeah, once he chimed in, you're.
So that's a minor challenge. The main thing is that once it's in core, it should be easier to work with because you don't have to install the plugin to get there. Another challenge is selecting an authentication protocol, and you kind of skirted around where that's at. I haven't done any authentication yet. Everything I'm doing right now is read-only. But there's basically 4 options, but only really 2 options from a live standpoint, because you really don't want to do username, password, credentials in your interface. And if you're building with a plugin or theme, and it's specifically plugin theme related, then cookies should work okay. If you're doing something like where I'm going, it's probably going to be an OAuth solution. One of the things to understand about OAuth and REST on WordPress is that right now only 1.0 is supported for OAuth, not 2.0, and the reason is that 2.0 requires HTTPS and 1.0 doesn't. And it was a big deal at WordCamp US. They made a lot of talking about it. And the deal is that WordPress does not require HTTPS and right now. And so they don't want to suddenly change WordPress to requires HTTPS. So that's why they're staying on 1.0 until the free SSL certificates become the norm. And basically everybody gets themselves on SSL in the first place. So I've done a little bit of a sandbox activity, and we're already at 6:30, so 10 more minutes, or is that 20? Okay. Well, I don't want to take away from people talking and other things too. So in order to do some initial validations, we set up a test environment. I went ahead and just used one of my own test sites to do this because I was really just adding a plugin and setting up some endpoints, and it wasn't worth building a whole new site to do at this point. I'll have to do that at some point, but I want to get this pulled together quickly. And so because one of the things we're going to want to provide is event information through the plugin, I said, listen, I'm probably going to use the events calendar to support that unless I run into an issue with that plugin. I use it for some of my clients. It's been a good plugin for us. And so what's nice is Events Calendar is planning to go to having RESTful endpoints. They don't currently have those, but they did provide some example code, just kind of using an adapter pattern to throw a RESTful interface on top of that. So that was a helpful way for me to get some testing set up. So the purpose here is just to prove that we can read from the REST API from JavaScript, whether it's just standard JavaScript or Angular JS. I didn't get to the point of, okay, now I'm moving into Ionic, and I need to prove that out as well. So this is the code I got from the Events Calendar folks. And so I won't go into a lot of detail, but basically, in order to set this up, as I understand it, if you're adding, there's some reason why we had to do something about protected meta, and I think it had to do with the fact that the plugin had control over the namespace for these, and so this little piece just opens that up a little bit, and this is the actual adapter pattern, and all it is basically the same kind of code that you've got, but what it's doing is it's saying, okay, here's the interface for the events calendar to actually pull an event out or a range of events out, and all it's doing is sticking the REST API in front of that. So through the API, you're passing in the URL, actual date range, and then it's coming back with, here's the JSON for whatever events fall into that range.
Regex there for those date parsing.
Yeah. So I haven't dug into the regex, but yes, it is, and it works.
Yeah.
So it worked first time, so I'm really happy about that. So basically, this is what an event page looks like on my test site, and basically just focusing on the title, and then this text, and then the date range. That's all I'm going to pull out of that to just demonstrate that it works. And then what I'm showing here is one of the tools that I'm using is Postman. This is an extension for Google Chrome that makes it really easy to test out RESTful APIs. So what you do with the tool is you basically put the URL up here and then press send, but it's also got additional things that you can control. So if you want to test out authentication, you can go through there, and there's some other tooling involved in there that I haven't really explored yet. But from everything I've found online, if you want to test RESTful API, you want to have this tool to help you do that. The other thing is that it shows the results kind of nice. And whatever, I don't know what you were using to show yours, but that looked really nice as well.
It's called JSON view. It's code
extension. Sure.
If the server outputs JSON, it just formats it.
Perfect.
Like that collapse and stuff.
Yeah, perfect. So that's what I've been using, and another nice thing is that it keeps a record of what you've done, so you can go back and double click on one that you did before, so you can use it again. So, and unlike other Chrome extensions, it actually runs as a separate app. I mean, you literally don't get to it like on your Mac by going to Chrome and tabbing through stuff. It's actually, it looks like a separate app, but it's using Chrome underneath. Sorry about the noise. However, if you don't use the tool and you go to the endpoint on your browser, you just get a stream of data, which is a good thing to know just in terms of knowing what you're handling when it comes back. But the nice thing is you don't have to handle it as a string. You just pull it straight into an object in JSON. So, did you want to look at that?
No, I was just looking at it.
I'm sorry for the small type. I did post this presentation in the shareables channel on Slack, so you can pull this down and look at it. What this is so I showed you the code, and I showed you one of the entries that we have. I actually have 2 event entries out there. What this here is an example of an index.html. So it's an HTML file with the JavaScript embedded in it. This is using jQuery. So I did this 2 ways. I did it with jQuery and I did it with Angular, just to show both ways and then show that they both get the same results. So the code is pretty simple here in terms of HTML. I've just got a paragraph up here, and actually I've got a div and a paragraph. And where the div is, the jQuery code is just going to replace it with the results it pulls back from the website. And so I don't think I need to explain jQuery and JavaScript to the student. And then this is using Angular. Now you've noticed that there's more code here, which some people might not want to deal with more code, and I understand that. What I like about it is that I can see exactly how I'm structuring my output here for the HTML, whereas with the other, if you look what I've done, and I don't know if other people have better ways of doing this in regular JavaScript, but I've just got this concatenation here that if I'm trying to figure out how this is supposed to look, it's not instantly clear to me, whereas with this approach with Angular, it's very clear to me, and I understand what it's supposed to look like. This is the point. So this is the result. This is actually the Angular result, but if you look at the jQuery result, it's exactly the same. Both of them come out exactly the same. So I basically set up those two different HTML files on the website, because if I did it from my desktop and called out to the website, it wasn't going to let me do that because of cross-domain coverage. Does anybody hate cross-domain restrictions? Yeah. Has anybody figured out how to get past that? Because I keep thinking I've got an answer and it doesn't ever work.
Once you get past it, then the internet will explode.
Oh, will it?
Because
is that like putting a mirror on a copy machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the security layer that everybody hates, but everybody hates.
Yeah. So I found something where you're supposed to be able to just put some code into your WordPress, and it's supposed to allow to bypass that. But
we can bypass it.
But it doesn't. I can't make it work.
Oh, really?
So I'll show you what I've done with that, and you can help me figure out what's
Just use
going
Perl
on.
for everything.
Just use Perl for everything.
Perl.
Oh, Perl, sure. Okay. I'll put that right up on my.
I mean, not for everything, but if I have cross-domain issues, just Perl.
So I put this slide up as just covering the basic tools, Postman, AngularJS, and Ionic. How many people are familiar with AngularJS? Okay, so I mean, at least you got a sense of it's a JavaScript framework, HTML JavaScript framework. It helps make it easier for you to manage presentation, and frankly gives you a lot of tools. One thing that the Angular folks tell you, don't use jQuery when you're using Angular, although I've seen plenty of people do that, and I've done it myself, and it doesn't seem to cause a problem until you try to do something and you use the wrong syntax, because some of their syntax is reversed, and you're working with both, and you just confuse yourself after a while. And then I'd love to, after I'm done making this work, come back and show you what I've done, just to give you some perspective on, especially with the Ionic part, because I really haven't been able to get into that today. And I really think that that's a big value point once I've got it up and running. I have played around with it. I think naturally, start with WordPress 4.4, 4.5 with the plugin, or if they get it into 4.6 core, that's even better. But I don't know how far away are we from. They're just starting to talk about 4.6 really today, right? So I would say go to Angular 2. So Angular 1 is what you saw in the code that I presented. Angular 2 is in beta right now, but it's really, really close to being production ready. Ionic is kind of in the same boat. Ionic 2 is based on Angular 2, and so I think as soon as Angular 2 is, buttoned down, they're going to turn around and say the same for Ionic. And then I would say I'm thinking it's going to be a good plan to start with Ionic in terms of development, and then have that done, and then try to reuse some of the code that was developed there in the rest of my presentation letters. Another thing, if you're going to get into the Angular stuff, is you may want to really think seriously about looking at TypeScript. Angular 2 is written in TypeScript, and TypeScript is a JavaScript extension that provides strong typing and kind of better object-oriented capabilities than what's available in basic JavaScript. I hate using prototypes because I get confused about what's what I'm using those. But anyway, and that's it. So I'm introducing myself at the end. That was really smart.
How far have you gotten into the Ionic stuff?
So I've sat down, I've gone through some of the base tutorials to build just little Ionic apps inside the CLI. Okay. And I can show you some of that later. I mean, nothing. I haven't done anything meaningful with it.
So how do you test that?
So Ionic's kind of interesting because you basically create a folder, and I don't think you create the folder. I think the command to Ionic creates the folder, but it just creates a whole implementation when you say I want to create a new one, and you can start with a template because they've got a number of templates that they've created for that. And so everything's basically there to do development with. Now, in terms of having it be ready for placement on a device, there's two ways you can actually get it to a device. One is what you're doing initially can be first of all moved off to their cloud environment and can be accessed through an app that you can download onto the iPhone or Androids. But then there's a separate step which I think involves adding a few libraries into your code that then allows you to generate it so that it can go be ready for it to be put out to the store. So I haven't gotten that far with it yet. I have gotten to the point where I can pull something up on my phone, so that's been kind of cool. And then they've had for a while, probably about 6 months, they've had this creator tool, which is a browser-based visual editing environment to actually organize your app. I've played around with that a little bit. It's got some limitations. So if you look at some of the work I'm doing, it's like, the words are too small, but I had to have a small font in order to get the whole word into a button and things like that. But I mean, it gives you buttons and lists and things of that nature. I still haven't figured out quite how to get to populating lists with data from my REST APIs. That's kind of the next thing I want to try to make happen. But yeah, so far it's pretty cool. But it's a learning curve. It's not like you can say, hey, I'm going to go ahead and build an Ionic app and 8 o'clock in the morning and then 4 o'clock you're done.
Well,
And it's cool.
Yeah.
Angular's not too bad. Okay, so there is a kind of a learning curve for Angular too. So I've been doing Angular for a year now, and all Angular 1, and I like it. It's got its own challenges though, and frankly, going from Angular 1.3 to 1.4 to 1.5, how you code in an efficient manner is different going from one to the next. So what I coded up there is actually